Story 1. AITAH for forcing my pregnant wife to be taken care of by her brother-in-law while I go on a trip? So first off, my wife and I are not in the best place right now. This is in part due to her decision to be a surrogate for her sister and brother-in-law. I did not agree with this. The current issue is not about that, though it is related. I was recently promoted, and with the promotion me and my family are invited on a retreat. It is an all-expenses-paid trip. I told my wife about the trip and she was really excited about, and so are our kids. My wife brought up the trip with her doctor though and was told that since she is expecting twins she should not fly after 20 weeks. She will be 24 weeks by the time of the trip and there is no way for us to go besides flying. Her doctor said with how she is progressing there is a chance she might have to be put on bed rest by then as well. Because of that, my wife doesn't want me to go either, since she says she'll need me here to take care of her. I would be able to since I have the option to work from home. I however still want to go on the trip, and so do our kids. So my thinking is that since the baby is theirs, that my sister-in-law and her husband should have to be the ones to take care of my wife. I talked to them about this idea and it was not well received because my sister-in-law and her husband do not live close by. So one of them would have to come and stay here to take care of her. Which means one of them would have to take a week off from work. They apparently are scrambling to save every penny they can since they spent all their savings getting my wife pregnant and were not expecting twins. My sister-in-law said if I was really going to abandon my pregnant wife they would figure it out and take care of her. However, because of the money issue, it means her husband would be the one taking care of my wife since my sister-in-law makes more money than him. It would be very detrimental to them if she took a week off, but they could make do without his paycheck if they had to. To me it seems like a good enough solution. My wife is upset though because she says I am putting her in the uncomfortable position of being taken care of by her brother-in-law when she is in a vulnerable state. Of course nobody is thinking he's going to do anything to her. She's just uncomfortable because he's a man and she would rather he not look after her. Update. I go offline for a bit to take care of some things and I come back to all these comments. Thank you all for helping not feel so crazy or I don't know alone in this. I do realize now that this is the end of the road for us. I probably should have realized that sooner. So right now I'm just going to start preparing for that and try to make this process as easy as possible for our kids. Story 2. AITAH. My best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me. My best friend's wife told him that she had an affair with me, which never happened. I have been married to my wife for 8 years. We have 2 wonderful kids. But, this is about my friend Josh and his wife Mary. I met Josh during my freshman year of college and we have been friends ever since. We have always shared our love for tech and he is always my go-to guy when I need someone to talk to. Josh started dating Mary 5 years ago. Let's say Mary has a very different set of morals than my wife or me. She is very loud, manipulative, and just craves attention. Josh and Mary had been dating on and off for 4 years. They broke up often, but somehow always ended up together after a few months. Mary is always the one who breaks up with Josh and then takes him back. I also know that Mary cheated on Josh at least with 2 guys when they were dating, but somehow convinced him that he was not putting enough effort into the relationship. Josh always blames himself for Mary as not happy. My wife also knows about all of this and has always kept her distance from Mary. However, we do meet her often during parties with friends. Josh and Mary got married last year. Last month, Josh found out that Mary was cheating on him again and had an affair with one of her coworkers. Josh was completely broken and stayed at our place for a week, before going back and confronting Mary and kicking her out of the house. Josh bought the house before marriage, and hence he had to get the cops involved to kick her out. From what we know, Mary moved back to her parents' house. I have been helping Josh through the process and he filed for divorce last week. Last Saturday, Mary came to Josh's house to collect her stuff along with her dad. I had advised Josh to get out of the house when they came, but he wanted to make sure she did not take anything that did not belong to her. During her visit, Josh got into a fight with Mary and Mary told Josh that she had an affair with me while they were married and we used to do it in their bedroom. This is all 100% false. I have always known that Mary was trouble and kept my distance from her. I feel she is just trying to hurt Josh by saying that. After that incident, Josh got extremely agitated and came to our house. I saw he was distressed and knew something was wrong. As I opened the door, he started cursing at me and accusing me of sleeping with Mary. Luckily, the kids were not at home, but my wife and I were there and we were both shocked by what he was saying. He tried to punch me, but luckily he hit my shoulder and I was able to wrestle him on the ground and calm him down. I kept on telling him that what Mary told him was completely false and that I had never spent a single minute with her alone in my life. My wife threatened to call the cops and he left. After he left, my wife was completely inconsolable. It took me hours to calm her down and convince her that Mary was manipulating Josh. I work from home and rarely leave my house without my wife or kids. I think she believes me, but she has been different for the last 4 days. Josh told a lot of my close friends that I was having an affair with Mary. He is not taking my calls or my wife's calls. My wife tried to call Mary, but she was also not taking our calls. All my friends, including Josh, think that I am the biggest off for getting involved with his fucking wife. I have no idea how to convince anyone that this is false. I am just so frustrated. Can someone please give me advice on what I can do next? Story 3. AITAH for sending my daughter to stay with my parents for her behavior? As a father, the relationship between my 17-year-old son and 15-year-old daughter has been a constant concern between me and my wife. We watched her consistently be mean and rude towards her brother and get constant reports of her bullying classmates at school. The tipping point was her involvement in a physical fight at school, leading to her suspension. She had been bullying this girl for weeks and decided to fight her simply because she found her annoying and aggravating. My wife and I were pissed to say the least, so we decided to ground her and take away her phone and all of her electronics away. She told us that she could care less about her phone, and it's funny we think she do. I decided that since she didn't care, I decided the best punishment I could come up with would be to send her away to stay with my parents in Alaska, with the possibility of returning home after she had learned her lesson. She begged and cried for me not to send her away. I told her that this was for her own good. She ran to her brother to try and get him to convince me to not send her away. He told me not to send his sister away, and he thinks that me threatening her was enough to scare her. Which, if I am being honest, shocked me because of how much she constantly talks bad about him and how much he plans to use about her behavior. I told him I appreciate his input, but my decision was final. After I got the tickets, I accompanied her to Alaska, where she was silent the entire way. Which kind of made me regret my decision, but I felt like she wouldn't take any other punishment as seriously. When we arrived at my parents' house, I spoke with my parents more about the decision, and they told me that they understand and will put some sense into her. I went to the school she will be attending to transfer her. She will be starting there Tuesday. I told her I loved her and hope she understand why I'm doing this. She told me that she hates me and never want to see me again. She also said that she hopes I die on the way home. This honestly made me cry, so I just walked out. This happened last Sunday. It is now Friday and my parents are telling me that daughter remains silent, cries during the night, and refuses to engage in any conversatio. This made me rethink my decision, and I'm starting on hoping to get my daughter back. My wife says I should let her stay because she says my parents are way stricter than we are and she'll learn how good she had it. I'm honestly feeling conflicted and I don't want my daughter to hate me. Story 4. AITAH for not leaving my wife so my daughter could live with me? My wife and I have been married for 7 years. We both have 15-year-old daughters. My wife's daughter has lived with her dad her entire life. My wife is an excellent mother, but her ex was moving across the country and she knew he could give her a better life than she can. 2 years later they moved back to his home country, approximately 12 to 18 hours from us by plane. They flew my wife out to visit them a few times a year, and they sent her to visit us during her summer vacation. He got a job approximately a half hour from us, so we've had her 50-50 for the past few months. The thing is, we have a 2-bed, 1-bath house in a good neighborhood. My daughter has had her own room her entire life, and she did not take it well when she heard she had to share. She's tried blocking my stepdaughter from their room, threw her stuff out the window, and tries to make my stepdaughter uncomfortable so she'll leave. Last week my stepdaughter got here, sat on her bed, and almost immediately ran out coughing and covered in a rash. My wife had to use her daughter's EpiPen and called 911. We didn't have a car at home. She and her ex got into a fight at the hospital and she got kicked out, and her ex is refusing to allow stepdaughter into the house. X is legally able to do this because he has full custody. We have a camera to monitor the dogs, and if the bedroom door is open, you can see into the girls' room. We had also just moved the camera and hasn't gotten around to telling my daughter yet. We decided to check the cameras and we saw my daughter bringing nuts into the room and eating them on my stepdaughter's bed before touching everything my stepdaughter owns. My stepdaughter is deathly allergic to nuts. Nuts are not allowed in the house, but you are allowed to eat them in the garage and you have to scrub your hands before you come back in. My wife, understandably, was furious when she saw it. She stormed into the girls' room, started screaming at my daughter, and told her to get the fuck out of her house. I talked my wife into letting my daughter pack a bag and I arranged for my brother to pick her up. My wife is adamant that my daughter is no longer allowed to step foot inside her house. We filed a police report and the plan is for her to stay in a group home or boarding school for the next couple years. Now my family and my daughter's mom are pressuring me to leave my wife so I don't have to send my daughter away. But I'm refusing to leave and I agree with my daughter's punishment because she nearly killed a person and caused my wife to lose her daughter. X isn't letting her into his house. Now I'm being called a bad parent by everyone except my brother, who is putting her to work on his farm until we find a more permanent arrangement, for choosing my wife over my kid. Story 5. AITAH for demanding an 11Y, oh apologize for stealing from me. My husband and I gay couple have a memorial shrine in our home. The urns and photos of both of our fathers and dog are displayed. I kept a large paw-shaped locket wrapped around my dog's urn. It was filled with a bit of his fur. My brother, his wife and 2 kids came over for burgers and hot dogs, soon after I found the locket to be missing. We searched everywhere, it was gone. A few days later my brother calls at 9 p.m. and I mentioned that the locket was missing. He casually mentions that he knows, his 11-year-old had borrowed it. I demanded it back, that he gets off his butt and return it immediately. He said no, he's tired. I'm angry, go to his house and bang on the door until he opens it and tossed the locket at me. It had been opened, my boy's fur was missing from it. I go home and get a call. Apparently a neighbor saw me yelling at him and called the cops. So my brother is mad at me, yet still wants to get together for another barbecue. I told him that he and his daughter will need to apologize to me and my husband. My brother refused, saying she's too young to understand that stealing is wrong and it would just traumatize and embarrass her. My husband is super non-confrontational and says I'm being an asshole for demanding an apology from a kid, that it won't change anything. The fur is gone and nothing will bring it back. My brother thinks I'm an asshole and 11-year-olds don't understand that theft is wrong. I believe an apology is 100% needed, as she stole and damaged something precious to me. So that's where we are. I feel shitty about this and don't know why. Yet I feel that I deserve a sincere apology. So Redditors, who sucks here? Edit I am calm. I fully understand that I overreacted. Should have waited to pick up the locket during the daytime. I shouldn't have yelled at my brother where my niece may or may not have heard. Demanding an apology is somewhat pointless if it's not out of genuine remorse. Though I hope they realize they fucked up and do apologize. I'll still host the next barbecue. My brother is a shit but he's still family. Update: I hosted the barbecue, but my brother surprised us by bring over curry and katsu. My niece was very silent during the day. I later asked her why she took the locket and what she did with the fur. She just wanted to borrow it, but she apparently washed out the fur in the sink. I guilted her a bit by saying it was special to me. We had Haru for 17 years. How I thought she loved him too. One of the displayed photos is of when she was hugging him as a toddler. She said she did love him but he didn't need it. I remained calm and gave her the locket, telling her that because of her the bit of him that made it special to me was now gone forever. Story 6. Am I wrong for who I chose to be my flower girl? My fiancé 35M and I 30F have been dating since I was 20. We got engaged last year and have slowly been planning an intimate wedding for February 2024. We have a guest list of 35 close friends and family only, and we each chose 2 people to be groomsmen, bridesmaids. He's having his sister's son 6 as the ring bearer and I decided to have his sister's daughter 4 as the flower girl. I have an amazing relationship with his family and a very strained relationship with mine, although it is getting better with my parents. I had posted an announcement on our wedding FB page about the choices. It was just a photo of the kids looking through dresses and suits with their mom. 2 hours later I got a call from my mother asking where the photo was taken and if it was where I was getting my dress. I told her it was them picking out their outfits for the wedding. She said, "Oh, that's cute," and then told me she had to go to an appointment, so we wrapped up the conversation and that was that. 30 minutes later my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize, so I ignored it. I don't pick up strange numbers. I saw they had left a voicemail, so I listened to it. It was my brother's wife. Brother is an abuser, so I don't speak to them unless forced to. She was livid to say the least, yelling and crying about the fact I didn't choose her son and daughter and that they would never forgive me and that I am no aunt to them. I chose to ignore this as I don't have a relationship with them and don't owe them any sort of explanation. I then got a call from my brother which I didn't answer either. He didn't leave a voicemail and I didn't call back. 2 days later there was a knock on my door, and who guessed it? It was my brother and his wife. She was demanding to know why I didn't pick their kids and why I gave some random kids their spot. I calmly responded it wasn't their spot and they aren't random kids. She began crying hysterically and saying that her kids deserved it for me being such an awful person. I told them that her and my brother weren't even invited and they needed to get off my property. My brother was silent through this entire thing. I told my fiancé what had happened when he got home from work, showed him our Ring camera footage and showed him the voicemail. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day, night, and didn't turn it on until the morning. When I turned it on I was bombarded with texts, calls, social media messages and posts about how awful I was for punishing the children and how I went crazy on my brother and Sil. I posted the Ring camera footage and the voicemail and tagged everyone who had made a post or sent me a text. I got several apologies, but I frankly didn't care. Our guest list went from 35 to 25 in a matter of minutes and I am fine with it. My mother and father are mad about the situation, drama, but are for the moment staying out of it and telling us to figure our own shit out. I still have family and friends and all of brother and Sil's flying monkeys harassing me about not wanting their kids in my wedding and that I'm a monster for doing this. So Reddit, am I wrong for punishing my niece and nephew and choosing my fiancé's niece and nephew to be a prominent part of our wedding? Story 7. I heard my in-laws talking about getting my wife back together with her ex. I have been with Abby for 13 years now. Every day that goes by I love her more and we're even expecting our first baby. For the holidays we always stay 2-3 months visiting my wife's family, but the problem is that this year all the family was really excited, saying that Alan is coming. In all the years in the family I never heard of an Alan and my wife didn't even cared about it, so I thought it was just some cousin. But the famous Alan was my wife's ex and first love. The man lives in Europe, but Abby's family still have contact with him and even invited the man to the house now he's in the country. I tried to get along with Alan, but the man just ignores me and takes every chance to get closer with my wife, making jokes or talking about the past. I didn't took it personal because I don't want to look jealous, but lately he has been coming every day to visit the family. And Abby's family started comparing his accomplishments to mine. They're all big fans of Alan. And I honestly feel jealous of that because they're treating him better than me. 2 days ago I heard my Mill and Bill talking about how nice it would have been for Abby to stay with Alan because he's a smart man. What hurt me the most was hearing my Bill say that he can try to get Alan and Abby back together, and my Mill just laughed, saying that it would be good to go on a trip to Europe every year and not to the countryside with the peasant, talking about me because I live in a farm with my wife, just because she always dreamed to live in that kind of quiet environment. In fact, now that I'm no longer blindfolded, I'm starting to notice how my Bill makes too many comments to my wife about how great Alan is, although Abby never says kind things about Alan, and I think she even treats him like he's a child. I don't feel comfortable being here knowing that they see me as a dumb peasant, and it's horrible to see how they try to include Alan in the family when they still treat me like I'm just a casual boyfriend of Abby's. But my wife only sees her family these months of the year, and I don't want to ruin that or put that kind of stress on her since she's pregnant. I feel like I'm in some kind of rom-com, but I'm in the role of the bad husband the protagonist leaves for the handsome CEO. Story 8. AITAH for spending money my grandparents gave me instead of saving it toward my stepbrother's treatment fund. My mom got married to Alan 2 years ago. I was 13 at the time, and Alan's 2 kids were Emma and Noah. Noah was diagnosed with cancer last year, and my mom and her husband were told there's some kind of different treatment. He could get in another country, and if they could raise the money, it would be better for Noah than the treatments available in the US. My mom and Alan could not afford it, so they have been sending him to treatment here and saving for Noah's treatment. They made a lot of cutbacks and asked that Emma and I give over any money we get so they can afford this. They have about 70% or something now, and that has come from cutting out a lot. We eat very basic meals, they cancelled our internet, and we didn't do anything for our birthdays or Christmas since the saving started. Any money that comes into the house goes on essentials or the treatment fund. My dad died 9 years ago, and my paternal family stayed part of my life. They know what has been going on, and they have been buying me little treats and taking me out to eat when they can. They also give me money every couple of weeks so I can have something if I ever need anything. I have been hiding that money because I know I would be told to give it up. I carry it everywhere because Emma is the type to snoop and then tell her dad. She has asked me before why I don't babysit to help make more money for her brother. She would work if she could, but she's only 11. I spent some of the money from my grandparents over the weekend. I got my hair cut, and I bought my best friend a gift for her birthday. I also got some food and spent some time at my dad's grave. My mom noticed my haircut and asked where the money came from, and she realized I was lying when I said I had been with my grandparents and they took me because I forgot they were out of town. So I told her they gave me some money to get some stuff done. She told me a haircut was not a need, and how selfish could I be. Alan heard her scolding me, and he jumped in and asked what the hell was wrong with me. He told me this family has to pull together for Noah, and I am acting like I don't care whether Noah gets this treatment or not. Of course, by the end of the day Emma heard and freaked out. But then my mom ran into my best friend's mom a couple of days ago, and she told mom my gift to my best friend was so sweet and thoughtful. I was sat down and yelled at for spending the money on not just me but on others. Alan asked me how I could give the money for a gift that means nothing when it could have gone to save my brother's life. I yelled back that it's not my job to pay for Noah's treatments and I'm already sacrificing, but I refuse to go all out the way they want me to. I told them the money came from my family who was nothing to them, and they need to let it go. Alan called me a selfish little bitch, and he told me I should be ashamed of my repulsive behavior. Now Emma keeps telling me I'm a bad person. Story 9. I found out my son isn't biologically mine. My wife is trying to use our son to stop me from divorcing her. I discovered that my wife Kat, who I married 2 years ago but have been in a relationship with for 7 years, cheated on me, and that our son Lee is not biologically mine. I was given the revelation by my mill. I would otherwise never have known because my wife and I are an interracial couple and our child is biracial. Just turns out the affair partner and biofather is also the same race as me. According to her, my wife confessed to her mother a year ago out of guilt. Mill wanted my wife to tell me directly, but I guess after failing to do so for a year she took the initiative to tell me herself. I took a DNA test and have confirmed that my son is in fact not mine. I have confronted Kat, who confessed to everything. AP was a regular customer from her retail job. She claims it was a once-off from a moment of weakness and that she never loved AP and that she ended things years ago. I looked up AP, who has a public Facebook profile, and my son's physical resemblance to him is extremely apparent. Mill has pleaded with me to stay and try to make things work. I've considered, and I just don't think I have it in me to stay in the relationship. Last week I consulted a lawyer to initiate divorce. Where I live it is no-fault divorce, so Kat's infidelity is pretty irrelevant. But I do have a prenup for all my premarital assets. I inherited quite a lot from my grandfather who passed away when I was 21. So it's mostly just the marriage assets that will be divided. I have also instructed my lawyer to attempt the process of removing my name from my son's birth certificate. Now I am not a monster. I love my son, but looking at him I now can't get affair partner's face out of mind each time I do. I will seek counseling, but there's a good chance this isn't something I can ever get over. I will not completely abandon him though. I currently plan to set up a trust account for him with a third-party administrator so I don't have to be personally involved. He's too young to understand, so I've simply told him that his mother and I have fallen out of love, which is partly true because the revelation has killed my love and affection for Kat. That said, I have written a letter which I have given to my mill to give to him when he's older, which will explain my side of the story. I have always had a good relationship with my mill and trust her judgment on when that time will be appropriate. Kat unfortunately is making this process difficult by telling him that she's still in love with me and wants me to stay, so I likely just look like a dad who is just leaving for no reason.